we are not rare. But before you leave, you will perceive the lore will be unlocked. You might be stalked by a Sasquatch or a ghost witch, possibly even a ghost that will boast about knowing the Ohio grassman or even the Michigan dogman. Werewolves hunt, poltergeists are up front, but in these backwoods folklore is unlocked.
Welcome to Folklore Unlocked. I'm Austin, and like always, I'm joined by Ethan.
Yep, hello again, everyone.
And this week, we are going to Ireland to cover a spirit that is tied to death and screams the Banshee. And like I said, it's a spirit from Irish folklore, but more specifically a female spirit. And it comes from Old Irish Ben Seed, meaning woman of the fairy mound or fairy woman. And the name is connected to tamale or mounds, aka seed, which are important in Irish folklore. And it typically signals death, brings death to a family member of those who hear her screams, wails, shrieks, or keening, which is like mourning from
I
what I hear.
I didn't know that it
Yeah,
was an Irish spirit. That was my thing. Like whenever I first was looking at this, I know I'd heard of banshees before, and they're like wailing or whatnot, but I didn't know it was Irish.
yeah. I mean, I've heard of like, yeah, screaming like a banshee monkey and all, but it, I always knew it was like, oh, the banshee is actually a spirit, not a monkey, but
Mm,
and legends are that some reports have banshees having long streaming hair, which she might be combing, which in some legends is the only way she can keen or mourn. And she's also wearing a gray cloak over a green dress with red eyes from crying. And other accounts state that she has red hair and dressed in white with a ghastly complexion. So either way, red and for some reason green is connected to the banshee, which is very Irish.
One thing I thought was interesting with the legend or like the depiction of the banshee is it kind of differs between like a few different stories. Because one story I saw was that like since they're kind of like a fairy adjacent, that they're like I think they said like 1 foot tall, like 1'4", something like that, and like very short. And then other times it like might take the picture of like a dead family member or something like that, especially like a young dead like virgin or whatnot, and that was what the banshee looked like. So I mean, it kind of changes what they look like in different stories.
Yeah, that's the thing about these creatures. They tend to differ from story to story and from person to person. And like we were saying, it's very tied to death, and a traditional part of Irish mourning is the king woman who would wail and lament, with some even being professionals, which is kind of creepy to have a person with like no ties to the family just to be like, hey, here's some money, come more at the funeral.
They see, I've heard jokes about that because like I've seen online that some guy was like, "Oh hey, if you pay me like $100 or something like that, I'll come to your funeral and like stand like away from the family and just like look at you and make it think like you have a secret past and stuff like that. And then I've also heard of like the people like running up there and like crying and stuff like that, like keening and whatnot. But I didn't know there was actually like this is like a part of history that like, oh, this happened in Irish like tradition kind of thing.
It just kind of strikes me as weird.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of weird, but it's kind of interesting.
And also, the banshee would sing a lament when a family member had died or was about to die, even if far away, and the news had not yet arrived to the person hearing the banshee, which in the old days, yeah, would really creep me out.
Mm-hmm.
And the banshee is also a psychic or a predictor, as she will wail if someone was about to enter a situation they would just, likely die in.
Now, you see, I like that. Okay, like don't get me wrong, it would be creepy, and if like I'd heard the banshee like call or wail whenever I was doing something, like if I was just driving down the road, I just heard a banshee wail or something like that, that would freak me out. But then now that I know this, I could be like, maybe I should pull over on the side of the road. It's kind of like Final Destination. Like if I knew ahead of time, I would just like stop what I'm doing and be like, you know what? Maybe I should just go home.
And then on your way home, you die.
Exactly. That's probably what would happen. But I mean, at least I could have a choice of like, oh, maybe I can do this instead. I mean, it'd be a choice.
A choice, but still.
Uh, there's also some other ties to death. It's also associated with the death coach, or like the funeral, like them driving around the dead body and stuff like that to the
It would
gravesite.
be like a hearse today.
Hearst, thank you. I was trying to get to that name, but I just could not think of it for some reason. And it's either summoned by the death coach or it rides in tandem with it. And then the death coach is also the harbinger of death. So if you see like the death coach like that, you can say like, "Oh no," kind of thing.
Oh no!
And when several banshees get together, it signals the death of someone great or holy. And then accounts for the banshee go back to at least 1380s. So it goes back a long, long time. And the banshee's wail is said to be so strong that it can like break glass and stuff like that. So like imagine like those opera singers that like sing to make a glass break. Basically, that's kind of like what the banshee does. It can break glass like that.
Which is not very fun.
Yeah, yeah. Can you imagine your ears after hearing that?
Ouch.
And then it has ties to Irish families since it's an Irish spirit. And some accounts state that the only descendants of pure Malaysian stock are Banshee bound, and that Malaysians are the final race to settle in Ireland, according to the, I'm going to butcher this, but we're going to try, Libor Gabala a medieval Christian pseudo history. And the names starting with O or Mick or Mac prefixes are also had a banshee attached. So O'Reilly's.
Oh, 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 that's copyright.
Yep. And then others say that anyone with an Irish ancestry is attached to a banshee. So if anyone has Irish ancestry watching this like that, you might have a banshee attached to you.
Which, as you'll see a little later, that one of us has Irish ancestry.
Well, you can go ahead and go on to that because we're on to our thoughts.
Well, like I just said, me as someone who has just a little tiny bit of Irish ancestry, I just don't want the Banshee to exist for obvious reasons, since apparently anyone with even a hint of Irish ancestry has a banshee attached to him. I don't think a banshee actually does exist.
But hey, okay, the Banshee's almost like a kind of guardian angel type kind of thing. If they can predict your death, I mean, they just cry at your death. That's all they do. I mean, there's nothing really. I don't think the Banshee's that bad. It's not like it causes death. It's just there after death or right before death.
Ethan, it's still creepy. It's a female spirit that screams when people die.
It's sad that you died. It's been with you through your entire life. Of course, it's going to be sad and cry. Come on. But yeah, for me, I think the Banshee is an interesting spirit or ghost or whatnot. Because of its wail and then also its ability to predict when someone is going to die, I think that's really what like separates it from other ghosts and spirits, and it puts it like at a high rating for me of like likability, I guess. And like, but it's a cool story. I don't think it's real, but it's just a twist on spirits or ghosts. And after learning about like kind of the Irish tradition of keening and whatnot, I'm almost wondering if they just made the Banshee because some kids were scared of the crying women's at funerals. That's what I'm kind of thinking right now.
Say, I'm pretty sure I've said this before in previous episodes, but I think most of the like these ghost spirits, mysterious creatures have a grain of truth in them because I think all stories begin somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Because I can literally think of like a kid like at a funeral seeing this like crying woman there or something like that, like wailing and whatnot, and then them going home and having a dream of that same wailing woman multiple different times, and just being so afraid of it that that becomes the Banshee. Like I can see multiple children having that same thought process.
Yeah, I can definitely see some like 5-year-old Irish kid just being like, that woman was scary.
Exactly. I would think so. I mean, kind of like you said, you'd be scared of it, so like that. But they're not really that. They're scary, but they don't really do anything other than predict death and then cry at your death. So I mean, they're not dangerous at all. I mean, other than if like you want to worry about hearing loss.
Yeah. Hearing loss is basically the worst the Banshee itself can do.
Exactly.
Now, the Death Coach, on the other hand, well,
That's another story.
well, anything else?
Nope. Just thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, if you're on YouTube, drop us a like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening to us on Spotify, drop us a follow. We'll see you next week with the Lost Colony of Roanoke, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
You might wake up beside Spearfinger with an extended visit from Jack the Ripper. But if you're lucky, it'll be an angel on that range hill of Louisiana. You might meet Mary Laveau or the Rougarou. At Folklore Unlocked, Austin and Ethan concoct their theory of the eerie and unexplained around the world, sometimes even the underworld. The lore is locked behind secrets, the folklore is meant to be unlocked. The Sokaloo is haunting NC as well as Tennessee. There are many giants that might be clients of the Dark Watchers, who might have psychokinesis. And the phantom time hypothesis is like a phoenix, coming back around again and again. There is a strain on your brain if you've got more than 2 brain cells in you. Some believe McCartney's dead because they read into the Mandela effect, which is subject